We're on the internet. This is the Music Nerds Record Club number 5 for the month of May. And we're going back in our time machine only 22 years. This might be our first album of this century to be hosted yet on the Music Nerds Record Club. Our host tonight is going to be Amy Rock, and we're going to get into System of a Down, 2002's Steal This Album. Joining me, I am Teacher on the Radio. With me tonight is Scott Greenberg of That's No Honest Man Can Pay podcast, Gus Creeder, staff writer for The Oracle at Tennessee Tech University, music journalist extraordinaire, Joe Guinness, my homie from the old days of Babyfish Lost Its Mama, Rick Quinn, my sibling from another cribbling out of Nashville, Tennessee, sometimes writer at popmatters.com. Amy, take us away.
All right. Hey, folks. I'm stoked to share this album with you. I wrote an essay that I'll be reading from. So here we go. Come with me back in time to Christmas 2002. I was 12 years old, getting to ride in the car alone with my super cool 21-year-old brother Steve for the first time. He had already played Pearl Jam, The Cure, and Pink Floyd for me and would soon introduce me to Incubus and Audioslave. But on this fateful day, he cranked up the first track of a new album and gleefully taught me to chant and scream along to these fast, absurd lyrics about pizza toppings and hating advertising. I had never heard anything like it before. Nothing is as exciting and energetic as this. Honestly, nothing has compared since. That was, of course, today's record, System of a Down's 2002 Steal This Album. It quickly followed their 2001 breakout record, Toxicity. In fact, the songs on this album were written at the same time as the ones that made it onto Toxicity. But it didn't fit with the vibe of that complete record, so these albums were set aside as their own album. It was leaked on the internet before it was finished, thus the ironic title, Steal This Album. Of course, Abby Hoffman's Steal This Book lends inspiration too. I love how this album fits into the history of the 2000s decade. The way it was leaked on MP3s over the internet, how the artwork looks like a homemade burnt CD, and the songs responding to the war on terror. But also, just the fact that the band, as unusual as System, could hit the mainstream at all was new to that moment in culture. I had a great discussion with my big brother last week as we were listening to this album again. I'm going to quote from him a bit here from that conversation. System of a Down were really doing something unique. They have such a fresh and earnest way about them that still feels polished. It's a feat to be this raw, yet appeal to millions. We're obliged to shout out Rick Rubin for doing his magic here, and I don't need to remind y'all what impact he's had on rock music. Sick producers help, but it ain't everything. My brother Steve got to see System in a tiny club in Seattle in 1999 when they were still touring hard to build up their fan base. He told me they were so sweet and grounded when he met them, really serious about the music, and that they would have played the whole show in the mosh pit if you let them. This is a band that worked really hard doing what they loved and got lucky enough to get to share it with the world. As I listened to this album last week, I was struck by just how crazy high energy it is. This is not a chill out album. This is an album for riding in the car, for yelling along with the lyrics at the top of your voice and slapping the steering wheel to the beat. No wonder me and my friends loved it when we were hyper teenagers. Even the slow songs are always moving, dancing, reaching, and I love that. But I think my favorite thing about this album is the vocals. Serge and Darren can harmonize their voices in such a beautiful and haunting way that's unlike anything else that I've heard. The way Serge's voice rings out on what feels like the wrong note, but it's just in a different melodic motif than you're used to in rock music. I love how this is a blend of super high energy metal songs and then more melodic pretty parts. Still, this album came out a year after 9/11. The anti-war themes here are both general and specific. If you don't know, the band is all of Armenian descent, and they're passionate to educate people about and speak out against the Armenian genocide that impacted their families. On other albums, they have songs specifically about that. This album is about the war on terror because it's from 2002, but it's about corruption and violence and power itself, which sadly is a theme that continues to be relevant. For example, the song ADD, American Dream Denial, it's one of those songs you hate how even more relevant it is 20 years later. As we watch billionaires and their global profits skyrocket and the American people suffer and die. This song even references a quote from Howard Zinn. There is no flag large enough to cover the shame of killing innocent people. The other song that made me pick this particular album for y'all was Boom, which is about the Iraq War. But it really helps me express my feelings about the current day war and conflicts as well. This song has the spoken word lyrics: 4,000 hungry children leave us per hour from starvation, while billions are spent on bombs creating death showers. This simple, rhymeless couplet says everything you need to know about the illogical evils of greed and power. This album helped form my understanding of the world. It saved me or radicalized me, depending on who you ask. I love this album because the lyrics are about being angry at the government, and musically, we can hear every bit of that rage. It's not quietly simmering dissatisfaction. It's white hot fury, and it sounds like fast drums you could headbang to, erratic guitar riffs, and yelling the F word to cops, billionaires, and the system itself. I hope you guys enjoyed your experience of this album, and I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are. Hi, Gus.
Hi, that was fantastic. What I have to say is definitely not going to be as eloquently put together. I have been a fan of System of a Down for a little while now. I remember in early high school having a few friends who were super into the debut and Toxicity and played it around me. And that's how I heard about Steal This album and heard about the story of its leak and the aesthetics behind it, which I think that's one of the things I'm most impressed with is how well the aesthetics of this album have aged alongside just I think it's more relevant. I agree. I think it's more relevant than ever. This was the album in System of a Down's discography that I was least familiar with in general in the whole catalog, and it was really fun to jump into. There were a couple of tracks that are definitely stuck with me. IEA, IAIO. I was blown away by just the meaning of that, being the vowels in the words idealization, illegalization, liberalization, internationalization, and illegal immigration. I think that's really cool. I think that's really creative. And yeah, again, I don't have too much to say on this album other than the fact that it is kind of it's why I enjoy metal. System of a Down is why I enjoy metal. They take, they're able to take so many risks melodically and instrumentally and writing wise that that's one of my biggest one of the hardest things for me in getting into metal, because it's not a genre that I necessarily grew up on too much, is finding how it relates to me. And I think that what System of a Down does that blows my mind so much is making it so understandable to know exactly what they're saying. And not even like tone wise or pronunciation wise, but to know why they are saying the words that they are saying, the impact of it, and seeing how well I think it's all aged. Because yeah, I mean, I think that Intervision is one of my favorite. Again, I had never listened to this album before it was announced as what we were covering this month, and I think Intervision is like one of my new go-to metal songs. It's awesome. And front to back, it's a very digestible record. It's exactly what I love from metal. I think Surge is just a freaking genius. I love all the writing style on here is so engaging to me, and it's like I have a hard time talking about it because it feels so cut and dry, interesting, incredible, and obvious why it has had the impact that it's had, and why I think it will continue to. And like I don't. It definitely does feel like the spiritual successor to Toxicity, but the fact that it's able to strike such a different chord in its delivery, I think, is really incredible to me. And I've had a lot of fun going back to it over the past couple weeks, and I really appreciate that it was the choice for this month. I had a really great time, and I'm genuinely excited. I was bummed I was going up so early because I wanted to hear what everyone else had to say. But now I'll pass it off to whoever is going next.
Thanks, Gus. And thank you, Amy, for taking me out of my comfort zone. Before this, I only knew Chop Suey by System of a Down, but they were one of those bands that I would put in the same category as like Deftones, as like hard rock metal bands that I knew were just pushing the envelope of the genre and on a list of bands I always wanted to investigate. So this gave me an opportunity to get better acquainted with their music. And so I am babbling here. I appreciate the fact that they are on the right side of history, not unlike their spiritual brethrens, Rage Against the Machine. I appreciate the precision. A lot of great metal relies on precision, and you could cut a dime on a dime with the guitar riffs employed on this album. And not just the guitar riffs, but everything's in sync. You know, the guitar, drums, bass is in sync. It's in lockstep. I appreciate how Serge and Darren just can spit these lyrics out just so in such a precise staccato fashion. And I'm not even scratching the surface of the actual content. It would take me at least a good couple more listens to really just dig into what they're singing about, but I appreciate it. And I really dig some of I appreciate the fact that there's this aggressive staccato approach that's going up against this melodic approach. The dynamics are there. And I really was taken with some of the more subdued melodic songs towards the end of the album. I'm referring to things like Ego Brain and Roulette. Just, yeah. And this will hopefully light a fire under me to explore more groundbreaking hard rock and metal. So with that, I popcorn it over to the next contestant.
Rick, you're muted. Rick, you got to unmute yourself.
That does help. Thank you, Andrew, Scott, Gus, and especially Amy for that magnificent introduction, as well as just having us focus on this album. This was one of my favorites so far for several reasons. Primarily is because I had no idea what to expect. This was my first listen to not only this album, but to System of a Down. And frankly, I was just blown away. I echo what Scott said about its intensity, its precision, the way it just comes at you right out of the gate. I had no idea what to expect, and that first track, Chicken Stew, and the way that it's like if Marshall McLuhan had taken a really hyped up, over-caffeinated version of Bohemian Rhapsody and just went at the whole advertisement thing. This is I'm sorry that I missed this when it was contemporary, but this is the type of music that just speaks to that little intense Rick that I often keep hidden, whose blood runs hot for certain things and causes, and the way that this just comes out and grabs you by the lapels and doesn't let go until you're 43 minutes in and you're just ready to start it all over again. I can't say enough about Boom. I just want to mention how powerful that is. The intense percussive mimicking of the dropping of bombs, and I think we could write a dissertation on that line. Every time you drop a bomb, you kill the god your child has born. I can't put into words what that made me feel, but I loved just the overt passion, the political nature of this album, the way in which I think it's in New Guns that he weaves in traditional Armenian folk instruments. just marvelous. I went down on a deep dive of some podcasts and stuff, and I'll close out what I'm saying by offering a snippet of a review from Focus on the Family. And for those of you that have any idea about the evangelical world, one of the things I think that I learned growing up in that world is that we are told to stay away from rock and punk and metal music because it's of Satan. But really, I think it's because of the way in which it goes at the status quo and authority. I think that's why we're told to stay away from it. And this little review that I found, I'll read you the last part. The summary advisory. Some good thoughts, but even the band's jabs at consumerism and pleas for starving kids feel contrived to support an anti-American agenda. Not what our nation needs right now. Add several dozen F words, and there's no point directing teens to steal this album. I think he does protest too much. I think there's absolutely reasons to recommend this album, and I'm glad, Amy, that you recommended it for us. And with that, I will pass it off to Joe.
Joe, you got to unmute yourself.
I'm not going to do that. And here I am. This was my first experience with System of a Down. I'd heard of them back when I worked up at the Borders in Traverse City. I worked with a nice guy named Eric, and he was a fan. And but I'd never heard him, so I didn't even know what we were doing until like 2 days before. And I happened to spend all day Sunday putting in a window on my house, and I just listened to it over and over again, and it was awesome. It was effing awesome. It's just nice to hear something. It's great to hear something that connects with you so emotionally, just that comes out of the blue. You know, I don't know where I'm going to go with it from here, but I did download his Surge's memoir on audio. I thought that would be fun. I loved, I'm not a metal person at all. I sort of have to be dragged into it, and when I do, I have fun. But I love how melodic they are, and just how, like, they're singular. I don't know that I've ever heard anything like that, and that's just bonus points to start off with if you just like are mining your own vein completely. And I think System of a Down does that. I know they're a very political band, and I appreciate that. I wasn't really listening for that at all, but what I got was the power of the music and his voice, and just the precision of the lyrics. I kept going back. I was Spotifying it, and I kept going back and liking things. So this is great. It's a keeper. Yeah, that's it. It's just exciting to be exposed to something that cool, and after all these years, and that's why I do this stuff with y'all.
So, Amy, you're going to have a couple of minutes at the end here to wrap us into a cocoon, or we'll be able to put all 6 of our heads on the screen to just kind of batter this around. But I'm a little bit taken aback by how few of us had any idea what we were getting ourselves into. I think Greenberg and Gus had dabbled, and that's it. And Joe and Rick and I are all Gen Xers of exactly the same vintage, and we're all admitting that we had no idea. And in the breadth of my fandom, I guess I'm probably the closest to this. I definitely went through a punk rock anarchy phase where I was really into Fugazi and MDC out of San Francisco. That stands for Multi-Death Corporation, Millions of Dead Cops, and lots of other things, lots of other inappropriate for Focus on the Family nicknames for NBC. And my ex-wife got me really into Tool, and I love Maynard so much. And this is everything I love about Tool and A Perfect Circle, but it's kind of better in a way for me, because I started to connect with what a saint and a sage Serge is. This man is absolutely unbelievable. I listened to several minutes of different podcast interviews, looked up his documentary, didn't get the documentary, watched the trailer, read a little bit about the documentary, read about this memoir that's dropping. So good timing, Amy, to schedule this the week that his new memoir dropped. Produced by Rick Rubin, then later gets interviewed by Rick Rubin. And as somebody who likes to be fluent about the anti-war causes of our world, how ignorant I was of his lineage and of his story and of what happened during World War I with the Ottoman Empire and the million people that were murdered. It's just unfathomable. And then him being able to go and do a live concert in Armenia, and then for him to actually participate in a nonviolent revolt that took place on Facebook Live in 2018. Oh yeah, how did you guys have a revolution? Well, we did radically decentralized nonviolent direct action, and we streamed it on Facebook Live. I'm like, what? You did what? So he reminds me of Maynard. He reminds me of Bono, Jim James, all my favorite activist rock stars. And also, I think I'm guilty a little bit of like thinking, oh, I can listen to some metal, but this isn't the kind that I like. And I think I'm jaded and bruised, as we all are, from watching the Woodstock, 99 documentary and them coming out of the metal scene of that same time period. I think I was like, it's so not that. He's like the antithesis of all the things we didn't like about Fred Durst in that documentary. I mean, and but I did want to go. I'm like, I have to like wrap my head around this. So I started looking at videos from this tour that followed this record, right? And so I'm pulling them up on YouTube, and the crowd shots at these shows, Amy, oh my God. I mean, everybody is just moshing and headbanging. And I had it on just on the TV, and it wasn't a really high quality YouTube at all. It was somebody's, ripped of a rip, a very lo-fi YouTube, and it was going through the TV speakers, not through the good speakers. And my wife comes in from the other room, and she just starts like banging and, getting down with the get down. So that is just absolutely incredible how visceral it is, yet at the same time, so genius. And I do love the layers of switching up between hard and fast songs, somewhat slower melodic songs, because I think there's something in a metal album, if you've like, and this reminds me of the psychedelic experience. And I did not take any psychedelics to have this experience, but listening to this, when you go through a few songs that are like sweaty and just emotive in this kind of full body way, but you also feel that some of that aggression being channeled, and some of our anger and unresolved resentments being channeled through that. And then he hits some kind of like, a little bit more hippy dippy melodic stretch, and you just are like, you feel like the angels are penetrating through the clouds in your psyche as you like, and you just want to like start doing, light an old Bic lighter and start like swaying with a crowd of like 100,000 people at some festival. So this is everything. And I want to repeat what Joe said. This is everything about why we started the Music Nerds. This is everything about why this hobby is a bottomless font, because I listen when I'm not working, like right now. I mean, I listen to music for like 7 or 8 hours a day, every single day. And I'm constantly discovering new stuff. I'm constantly getting turned on to new stuff. And the level of which I felt an affinity and synchronicity with Serge as a human being, but this music in general, and the spirit that it represented, that you so well described in your opening today, Amy, it was like, what? And it's 22 years later, I finally am getting around to listening to this record, and that's why we recommend the second half of the show, because in the second half of the show we are going to share some of our current listening discoveries, in hopes that somebody else on the call, or somebody who stumbles across this video on Facebook or YouTube, will they themselves go and listen to some of our suggestions. So Amy, you've got, you can share a 5-minute round robin on this album before we switch to the second half of the show.
Oh, I'm so honored that y'all took the time to check out this album and really got into it and found what was cool about it. And what I thought you guys would think was cool about just the unique musicality to it and just the way like politically it influenced me, the way the albums we've listened to the last couple months influenced y'all. This is like the most millennial album. I just texted my friend. He's like, the most millennial thing is getting this album from your friend you watched 9/11 with in school. And yeah, I'm just so stoked that you guys really got what this was about.
Amy, that just hit me. You were at school on 9/11, a school child. What grade were you at 9/11?
I was in 4th grade in the West Coast, so I didn't even get to the school. I like woke up and my mom was watching TV. Anyways.
But still, like people of your vintage saying to your friend, the same person I watched the towers fall on the schoolroom TV with next year gave me a copy of System of a Down. And you also contextualized it so well around the time before Spotify and YouTube, when the internet was there. It was a way to steal the album literally before it came out.
Yep. Yeah. Gus, do you have any other thoughts you were hoping to maybe chime back in after hearing other folks?
I just did. It was a really fun album to hear everybody's perspective on. I'm glad that it wasn't just me who hadn't gotten to dive into it all the way before. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome. You guys are so cool. Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, I think if you're still interested in System of a Down after that, I invite you to listen to Toxicity. That's the one that really broke them out onto the mainstream, and it's maybe a little more coherent as a rock album. So I would highly recommend getting into that if you enjoyed this one.
Speaking of the 9/11 connection, Toxicity came out a week before 9/11 and then was immediately banned. And also, I think it's maybe his debut solo album, but the solo album Elect the Dead by Serge Tankian in 2007. I started dabbling into that. Rick, there's a track on there that I think you're really going to connect with. You're all going to like it, but it's called Praise the Lord and Pass the Ammunition. And it's as good as anything, I think, that on the record that we just listened to. And I'm also noticing, I think this is great that Spotify tells us how many streams somebody has, but also it's a little bit scary when I go to my friend's page and they're like 1,200 streams, right? This music also is humongously popular. That's the other thing too, that just like, my brain is like, my face and brain are thoroughly melted by this experience, Amy.
Love it.
All right, let's cue up second half, and Scott Greenberg's going to get us started on current listens.
Thanks, Andy. I'm going to start my whole segment with something from my own backyard. The Eyebrows. The Eyebrows are a power pop garage rock trio from Charlotte, a spin-off of one of my other favorite Charlotte bands, Temperance League. Jay Garrigan was the keyboardist in Temperance League. He's the frontman of Double Take. Double Take is Truth in Advertising. It's 5 songs recorded twice, plus a couple of bonus tracks. And they are longtime co-conspirators with Mitch Easter, even going back to their Temperance League days. Mitch worked with Temperance League a lot. And they were going to go back to Fidelitorium to do some recording. And Mitch was like, wow, things are kind of booked up right now, but why don't you all go ahead and record by yourselves? And they did. And then they went back to Mitch. So there are 2 versions of each song on this. The opening track, Yeah, is the best song Big Star never recorded. And of course, I'm digging the latest from St. Vincent, All Born Screaming. I've always been a big fan. Last couple of albums I was kind of lukewarm on, but this one is potent, and much like the album cover art, it is fire. Annie Clark is one of the most underrated guitar shredders on the planet. I'd put her up there with Mary Timony, guitarists that need to get more shine. Absolutely digging the crap out of Adeem the Artist's new one, Anniversary. And I was talking with Andy about this one. And what I love about this is that while it is sonically radio friendly, the most radio friendly songs on here are also the most subversive. Songs like Nightmares, just really taking aim at just the organized religion and the far right Christianity. One Night Stand, which, you know, if you're a bro listening to it, you know, not really paying attention, oh, you're thinking nice romantic song. But then when it hits you that it's a dude singing romantically about another dude, oh, the times they are a-changing, and I am here for all of this. I love everything about this record, and I've already spun it about 3 or 4 times. Looking forward to spinning it several more 1,000 times. Okay, the next one is a twofer, and I'm going back home to Detroit for this. My good friend, singer-songwriter, guitarist, Jo Sarapere. She's got 2 brand new albums out right now. The Beautiful Ones, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So get all your Use Your Illusion jokes out of your system right now. Jo and I have been friends for years, and I have been a fan of hers for years. What you got here is 2 albums that she has been working on for a while, and just steeped in American roots music. Just people from all aspects of her career. She's had 3 different bands, the Willie Dunns, the LaFondas, and Stella. And there are members of each band who help her out on this. And I would say that the 2 biggest stylistic components here are just really gut bucket blues and just beautiful ballads. And Volume 1 is really just thematically songs about her in her 20s, and Volume 2 is really just her in her current state, just kind of taking a look back and taking a look forward. Can't recommend those albums enough. And then finally, the solo debut from Beth Gibbons of Portishead. I've only listened to it once, but I found it quite engaging. Looking forward to checking it out some more. I also have the new Avett Brothers record that I haven't gotten around to listening to. So I can't really in good conscience say that it's great or it's bad. I will also wrap up by saying that loving the Talking Heads tribute. Everyone's getting involved, despite the fact that it's not available in the physical format. You can get it on the streaming services. And let's all pour one out for the late, great Steve Albini.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much. I need to look at my notes here. Okay, Joe is coming up next. What are you listening to right now, Joe?
All right, I'm unmuted. I've picked up on a couple of new singles the past few weeks. The first one I want to talk about is Love Changes Everything 1 by the Dirty Three. The Dirty Three is Warren Ellis, who's now also a Bad Seed, Jim White, and some other cat. They're sort of global, but they've had a long career sort of based out of Australia. Warren Ellis is just one of the most fantastic creatures. There's an interview with him in I have to dig it up and share it. And it was in The Guardian recently. He's just like a wild, amazing guy exploding with life. And the band's music is instrumental. It's a trio. And the best thing I can say about it, when they're on, which is often, it's ecstatic. And I mean that in the sort of spiritual sense, not just like, woo. This is like that too. It starts off dissonant and all of a sudden it comes to form in this beautifully high level emotional way. Their hearts are really in that. Another new single by an old band Cognitive Dissident by the. They've got an album coming out in September. Their first in 20 years, 30 years, something crazy. Matt Johnson and other people. That's the kind of a cornerstone, keystone band from my late youth. The song's great. He can write a song, and that doesn't change over time. I it's just nice that somebody can still do good work after all these years. The exciting thing is that he's going to tour in addition to releasing this album. The other song I've been listening to a bunch is Rachel Brooke, who is a Michigan-based sort of trad country honky tonk Tears in My Beer singer, and she does some great stuff. She's got a new record out. The new single is the only one. Hey lonely one, you're not the only one. That's sort of what you're dealing with. She's got a sweet, high, lonesome voice. Just as a I've lost the phrase I'm looking for. I came around to this because our friend Scott and Andy's friend Brian Farabee, a drummer I played with in the past, plays on that. A lot different than what he did with us, but it's pretty great if you like that sort of thing. It's Rachel Brooke, the only one. That's all.
I'm going to tell everybody to go on the Teacher on the Radio SoundCloud and listen to the unofficial, unexpurgated, unedited, never released, an official release Underwater Rain album from 1987, featuring Brian Farabee of the Rachel Brooke Ensemble Band. And I still think somebody's gonna do a retrospective vinyl. Some label's gonna finally find you, Joe, when the right person listens to that album. And I've got to look at my notes again. Next up with new releases is Gus Creeder.
All right, so I'm just going to start off and say that as a younger fan of rap music, it has been a busy couple months. I've been very distracted for the most part due to the disses going on between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, which have kind of come to a close. I think there's a bit of a bow on it, at least musically at this very moment. But it has had me continuously going back to some albums from Kendrick that are ones that I don't have in my rotation as consistently as his most acclaimed sans Pulitzer Prize, like To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City. I've been listening a lot to Damn. I think that there's a reason why this is his enormous commercial project, and it's for good reason. I mean, the music is accessible, it's exciting, it's potent the whole way through. I think it has a couple of his most digestible storytelling songs ever, with Duckworth and Fear. Two of the best tracks, and I love that album. I've been going back to it a lot, as well as Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, one of my favorite albums from 2022. And then the rest of the records I have are ones that I picked up recently on a little trip I went on, that I was just really excited to get. All records I really love and I've had fun spinning recently. I have LCD Sound System, Sound of Silver. LCD Sound System is known for their adventurous and out there takes on dance music. And I think that album, to me, is the prime example. You have songs like All My Friends, being fully based around a little piano chord, and like the title track Sound of Silver, or the opener Get Innocuous. Those are all just some of the most fun songs I've ever heard. But then you also have the closer, New York, I Love You, But You're Bringing Me Down, which is them going fully outside of the realm of what people have normally understood them as being able to make, and making this incredibly beautiful, loud, and exciting to listen to ballad that, it closes everything out so well. I picked up this classic the other day. It was, I think, $12 at a really cool little record store that I found. Frank Zappa's Apostrophe. It's just one of the best albums. I kind of I sort of forget how rock and roll Frank Zappa is. Like, you get distracted by all of the oddities of his creativity that, I mean, you forget that the music itself is just like, it's unparalleled. There's really nothing exactly like it. And that album in particular, that's my favorite. That and Peaches and Regalia. And I've had such a good time going back to it. It's been probably a year or two since I really listened through Apostrophe, so it was super fun getting to play it on vinyl. Another one that's just I have loved for a long time that is a little weird, but I found it in person and I just had to pick it up, is Mort Garson's Mother Earth's Plantasia. Now, if you don't know this album, I don't blame you. It is an album that it's kind of known as the plant album. It is made to help plants grow, and it was I believe it was the 76, I think it came out, and it is just a beautiful kind of electronic, hazy, really easy listening album that I've been a fan of for quite a number of years now, and I saw it and couldn't not pick it up. And then finally, the last one I have is just an album that's been sticking with me a lot recently. Got Nick Drake's Brighter Later. This album, I mean, it's my Nick Drake album. People adore Pink Moon. I think Pink Moon's basically perfect, but there are just so many tracks on Brighter Later that stuck with me. Some of the most impressive, like some of my favorite guitar playing. It's so catchy. And it's so tragic. It's a hard record to listen to all the time because the context of Nick Drake as an artist is a difficult one to fully process. But yeah, I love all of these albums. It was so great getting to pick all of them up and share them with you. And I look forward to hearing what else everyone's listening to.
Those are some great recommendations. And it has been such a bountiful year in music, the stuff that we've seen. And I've been furiously taking notes as my colleagues have been laying out the recommendations. I echo some of the things I've already mentioned. Scott grabbed, or a couple of things that Scott recommended. I also want to co-sign on. The Adeem record it's musically tonally different than White Trash Reveille, but Scott, I think you nailed it. Subversive is the way to put it. It sneaks up on you and then just turns the tables. It's really great. And I've also been digging the St. Vincent album quite a bit. A couple of things that I have just recently dabbled into and hope to go back for some longer listens. I've listened to I'll say new Childish Gambino album, Atavista, which I think is a re-release of a previous album. I'm not exactly sure, but it is layered. It is funky. There's a little Stevie Wonder in there. There's Prince influences. They're just. I'm looking forward to diving a little deeper into that. And then last night I listened to all the way through for one time to the new Billie Eilish album, "Hit Me Hard or Soft," and I have a feeling that one's going to creep. Or make a strong contender for the top 10 at the end of the year. It is dreamy, the kind of scented candle, LED mini lights, moody, longing, lush pop. It is a very interesting album, and I'm really looking forward to spending some more time with that. I'll make one more recommendation that is sort of a look into the future. And Andrew and I went and saw Adim, the artist, at the Basement East recently for the release of Anniversary, and Flamey Grant was opening for Adim and played some songs from an upcoming album that Flamey is putting out in September. And the songwriting is just incredible, and I'm really looking forward to that. So those are some of the things that I've been listening to and am looking forward to listen to.
Yay, good recommendations, Rick. I was gonna mention the new Billie Eilish as well. I listened to it for the first time today, so I don't really have much to say about it. Just that I love her so much. I love her crisp vocals, kind of that mid-century feel that's getting more popular now, and just the cool production work on it. It's always like super cool, and that I like about Billie Eilish's past albums, and it's there quite a bit, and I can't wait to listen to it more. My big new release recommendation is from Eric Slick. He's been getting a lot of airplay on WPLN 99.1 in Nashville. That's where I've been getting a lot of my good new music recommendations lately. So unsurprisingly, this one is from there too. Eric Slick, his new album, New Age Rage. It's really funky and fun. It's 80s vibe. I got to see him at the Blue Room for the record release show, and it was really fun. The singles are Lose Our Minds. That made it onto my February playlist, and Anxious to Please. My favorite song deeper in the album is called Philadelphia Lights. And at the show, there's some like really good call and response going Philadelphia Lights. So I don't know. It's super fun. It's so my aesthetic. Like, look at this artwork. It's so crazy. So recommend Eric Slick, New Age Rage. Let's see, just what I've been listening to lately, kind of in the zone, listening to System of a Down, thinking about the early aughts and bands my brother gave me. Audio Slave, they're self-titled, but especially their 2005 album, Out of Exile, is just a comfort album for me. And it just feels good when I'm sad and alone, and lifts me up. Be Yourself and Doesn't Remind Me are some of my all-time favorite songs. So that's what I've been listening to. My last recommendation is a movie, but it has a really good soundtrack, so I'm going to sneak it in here. It has Caroline Polachek, Phoebe Bridgers. Phoebe Bridgers is actually in the movie in a scene. It's called I Saw the TV Glow, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn, distributed by A24. Emma Stone is one of the producers. Justice Smith is one of the leads, and he does a great job. And it's such an amazing movie. The soundtrack is just to get people in there. The story and themes of it, it's a little on the face, but just really digs into like the loneliness and the experience of being queer, kind of the trans journey. And on the face of it, it's kind of about kids who loved a Monster of the Week TV show that maybe became real. And it's just creepy and really puts such an amazing mood. And I'm going to go see it again later this week. I think I just saw it yesterday, and it's just filling my mind. So I saw the TV Glow, a movie I just saw at the Belcourt. And those are my recommendations.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so good, sticking to our time too. So we're going to have a minute at the end to come together and wrap all this up. I think I recommended The Dog's Body from Cookeville. I might have only messaged it to you guys in the chat, but Amy Rock knows Blake Marlowe of Cookeville. They had their album release a month late because the drummer burned his hand. And I skipped that. I was supposed to go, and I think I would have loved it. And I skipped the Dog's Body record release party to go to Nashville to the Country Music Hall of Fame to see T-Bone Burnett. T-Bone Burnett is known as a record producer. And whereas I had System of the Down out here in my peripheral vision, and I thought I knew what they were, but I didn't really. T-Bone Burnett is somebody who I thought I knew who he was, but I didn't really know what T-Bone. I know he did Oh Brother Where Art Thou. I know he produced Gillian Welch. I know he produced Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. But T-Bone Burnett has a T-Bone Burnett album, and it's a folk album, and it's eerie and beautiful and soft. And Rick, if you haven't listened to the opening track on the new T-Bone Burnett record, he came down. Please go listen to that tonight if you can. It's just absolutely incredible. There's a band called The FBR, and they said it's based on a Leonard Cohen song. I have no idea what Leonard Cohen song it even is, and they seem to be basically unknown, and somehow it came up in my recs. I don't know. I go to get a lot of source material or recs from different sources, and I can't even remember where I heard about the FBR, but it's a woman-fronted blues Americana band that is insane. They're so good. Famous Blue Raincoat, is that the name of the song? That's the name of the letter. See, that's why we have a team. This is a team effort. Thank you, Joe Guinness. So I highly recommend the FBR. I think it might be their debut album. I think they're really way under the radar. And I've only gotten through the new Avett Brothers a few times, and it's getting called mawkish. It's cheesy, it's schmaltzy, it's soft rock, it's adult alternative. It's all the music we said we would never listen to when we were of System of a Down age. But it's unbelievable. I love the Avett Brothers, and I love this new record. But it's a soft pedal, and it's pretty cheesy. I mean, it's graduation speech song. It's one. The last song that I sent Rick right away after hearing it is like a church song, but it's good. It's really, really good if you like the Avett Brothers. I think some of the songwriting is excellent, and it is a little bit varied in pace, though it is mostly slow songs. So I made a slideshow while we were sitting here. So yes, let me endorse Adeem the Artist's anniversary. Adeem the Artist out of Knoxville, Tennessee is a dear friend of mine. I've seen them about 15 times in the last 2 years. I've become their friend and their super fan and their groupie. And the reason why, as Scott Greenberg so eloquently pointed out, that the subversive material sounds like it was made for rock and country radio is because of the man on the left here. That is Butch Walker. Butch Walker has worked with Taylor Swift and Green Day. He is a giant in rock and pop production, and Butch Walker produced Adeem's album, and that is why it's so earwormy, hookish. And I just wish the best for Adeem, for their family, for their partner, for their son. I've become friends with one of their managers, Steph. I just love the whole. The drummer came up to me at the show. I didn't even recognize him. The drummer, while Flamey was on, the drummer came up. Andrew, we're so glad you're here. I haven't been this close to a band since Underwater Rain, Joe. So it's just so exciting to be a part of the Adeem the Artist entourage. Actually, there's a band out of North Carolina called the Collection that Jeannie and I were pretty close to as well. I'm going to try to squeeze in a couple more recs here. As I'm going last, I'm probably going to take a little more time, but I really want you all to hear about all of these things. So I went to the Belcourt a week and a half ago. It was actually the same night as the Adeem opening. We went to the Grimies. We rushed out of Grimies over to the Belcourt, caught the movie, and then rushed back to the Basement East for the concert. And we saw the Flannery O'Connor biopic, produced by Ethan Hawke and starring and directed by Ethan Hawke and starring his daughter Maya Hawke. And I just want to say that this movie was unbelievable to me in every way. I started crying about halfway through. I couldn't stop crying. There's something about Flannery's character and the way Maya Hawke portrays her that it just broke me into a million pieces. And then just the idea of having all these short stories in the movie and having the principals, which are Maya Hawke and Laura Linney, play all these different characters and all these, it was brilliant. And it did feel like a little bit like Saturday Night Live, like, wait, oh, here you are again, and you're a different character. But it's a very dark Saturday Night Live, very gothic. And that got me thinking about this idea of the Southern Gothic. And I had to write Joe and make sure my memory struck me right. And that, yes, we back in the 80s got turned on to this idea of Flannery O'Connor and the Southern Gothic from REM, from Peter Buck, from Michael Stipe. And I don't know what their most Southern Gothic album is, but I just remember how ready I was for life's rich pageant. It was the summer between high school and college, and Flowers for Guatemala, and then the banjo intro, Swan Swan H, and then the banjo intro to I Believe. I don't know. So this might be their most Southern Gothic album. I found an essay written about Flannery O'Connor's connections to REM, and they were really all up in Fables of the Reconstruction, Oddfellows, Local 151. I can send anybody the essay if you want to read it. I sent it to Joe the other day. But one band from that period, pictured on the left, is not REM, is Guadalcanal Diary. And I know Scott and Joe remember them, but I completely lost my mind with how, like, to a fault, the Southern Gothic is Guadalcanal Diary. I mean, it is just, and how REM, they were kind of under the shadow of REM, how REM adjacent they are. But what I re-listening to the first 3 Guadalcanal Diary albums today, just thinking about this connection, and just completely, the music holds up incredibly well. But the thing I'm even maybe more excited about right at this exact moment, even more than the Ethan Hawke movie and the Flannery O'Connor revival in my heart, is the Decemberists. And I cannot wait for this freaking album to drop in June. And I do not know why a band tours for an album that isn't out yet. That's not fair. But I got to hear a few of the unreleased tracks the other day in St. Louis. By the way, I think you can still get a ticket for Friday at the Ryman. Gus, Rick, and Amy, if you guys want to go see a show that is going to just be incredible this Friday night at the Ryman. I won't be there because I'll be at another show. But this 20-minute song about Joan of Arc, I listened to it twice, I think, when it came out as a single, and I thought, what a crazy move to have the single from your album be a 20-minute prog rock, suite in 3 parts. And I went, after I saw it performed live, it's the encore, spoiler alert, a 20-minute prog rock, thing is the 20. But I got so into this song and what it's saying about Joan of Arc, and it's all about, angelic visitations and psychedelics. And it's definitely got like drums in space at a Dead show, which was like the bathroom break part of the Dead show, where they just start like noodling on all these noise equipment and sequencers and little synth box, little things. I don't even know what they're called. Just little guys like knobbling on their knobs. And apparently on the studio track, Mike Mills sings backup vocals. But after I saw my face get melted, I went back in and started listening to reading the lyrics, studying the lyrics. Colin Molloy is making a statement about being queer and transgender, and like a militant Christian saint, from like the 15th century, because that's just what Colin Molloy does. But read the lyrics and put on some really good headphones for St. Joan in the Garden. And I went way over time, so thank you all for. And we make the sequence somewhat arbitrarily. So we've made it to the end of another Music Nerds Record Club. This was number 5. Number 6 is going to be in June. Hopefully y'all can make it. Hopefully Gus can be there for his album.
Definitely.
Gus, do we know what the album is?
Yeah, if we want to announce it now, I was thinking that we were going to do something. We're going to go back to the 70s. And we're gonna, for Pride Month, cover one of my favorite queer artists who I've discovered in the past couple years, Labi Siffre. He's an incredible jazz guitarist, and
Nice.
We're gonna listen to his album "Crying, Laughing, Loving, Lying." I'm really excited to see how everyone likes it.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Wow. See, now something else that I had no idea.
Yeah.
Gus, your fluency is like when you start like, and some Nick Drake. Hey Gus, tell everybody where you and your dad went on Friday.
Man, we went to Cincinnati to go see the Violent Femmes. They performed their first 2 albums for the 40th and 41st anniversaries, respectively, and it was freaking awesome. Had such a good time. The venue, it was a great outdoor venue, and I danced and sang, and it was fantastic.
I don't know about anybody else, but Violent Femmes were formative for me. I don't know about my fellow Gen Xers on the call or not. Anyone else? Last words until we come back in June.
2 things. Number 1, thank you, Joe, for bringing up the new The Thus single. Can't wait for the full length. Also, Debt's No Honest Man Can Pay. Available almost everywhere you get your podcasts.
Hey, Scott, what 80s band did you get a flashback with recently?
Was I supposed to have one?
You went to a show. You went to a show with the guy you introduced me to.
Oh, yeah. I went to go see Echo and the Bunnymen. And
how was it?
They were great, but Ian's voice is not holding up well.
I heard that from that clip. It was he was ragged.
Yeah, he was
he couldn't soar.
Oh, he was relying too much on the crowd to take the vocals on the choruses. But, otherwise they sounded great. Awesome local band from Charlotte, Modern Moxie, opened the show. But I hate the Fillmore as a venue. It feels like a cattle pit. Andy was there 2 nights earlier with me for Sierra Farrell. Thank you for taking me to that show.
I cannot believe how freaking amazing Sierra Farrell is. I'm just
She was great. Yeah.
When I get back into I only listen to country music lane. Sierra Farrell's in that lane. All right, well, everybody, we're over time. What a great hour we've had, and we'll be back next month. The link will be ready to share. And if you are an actual listener, please consider sharing the Music Nerds Record Club with your friends. And thank you so much for attending.